Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patti Lago, and I am a program manager with McMaster Continuing Education. We are delighted to welcome you to our wonderful Essential Programs webinar, Finding Humor in the Hectic Holiday Season. Our aim with Essential Programs is to engage, inspire, and support lifelong learning and discovery. So we're really excited to have you join us today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we reside. McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it's located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, we are joined by our amazing facilitator, Nancy Watt. Nancy Watt is an instructor at McMaster Continuing Education who teaches two courses: Tactical Humor, Leveraging the Funny to Build Connections, Camaraderie, and Community, and Scared Scriptless, Improve Bootcamp Presentation Skills, both of which are scheduled in winter of 2024. Nancy's speaking engagements have been delivered in tech, legal, engineering, healthcare, and corporate sectors. She's delivered to academic institutions such as Harvard University, Princeton, MIT, Reuters New Jersey Institute of Technology, Caltech, University of Chicago, University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, and her alma mater, McMaster University. Nancy's work is referenced in academic papers for pedagogical experiential learning and her psychology journal outlining her pilot experiment lowering social anxiety disorder amongst high-risk youth in Hamilton. Nancy harnesses humor and uses the currency of comedy as a learning modality. She's from Second City's Improv, Conservatory, and Comedy Sketch Writing programs in Toronto and Chicago. She has a BA, is certified in Applied Positive Psychology, is an applied improv practitioner, and a graduate of Cornell's Executive Program in Diversity and Inclusion. In addition to EQI 2.0, she was the first graduating cohort of AQ Adaptability, quoted from AQAI. Nancy delivers the program Happy, How to Apply Positive Psychology Improv Exercises. Nancy also lastly wanted me to share that she makes a very good banana bread. Her dog wishes she could throw the ball further. She's a middle distance mediocre runner for over 30 years, which helps her manage her own stress, especially around the holidays. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Nancy. Over to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Patti. Thank you. And thank you for being such a good sport and wearing the holiday garb. You're so great. You're so great. Thank you all for being here. I have been really looking forward to this. And first off, out of the gate, tell me in the chat, talk to me in our next hour together. Tell me in the chat by percentage of how much things your to-do list you still have yet to do for the holidays to 2023. 1, 2, 3, go. 88. Good, Doreen. Jess, thank you. Carrie, 95. Woman after my own heart. Aaron, same. Awesome. All right, and loading. Look at you. You're so great. Thank you. Many, 100%. Good. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. There's some that celebrate and some that don't. And whatever your faith, whatever your connections, whatever your traditions, I offer you just my very best wishes. I know that next week on the 8th of December, my Buddhist friend will celebrate Badhai, and we have Hanukkah starting on the 18th, and we have the 22nd of December is the Wicca and Pagan festival, and winter solstice coming, and then Zoroastrian friend of mine on the 26th of December, and then the Sikh festival on January the 5th, and whatever you celebrate, let us rejoice in family and connection and togetherness and whatever brings you peace and laughter and humor of the holiday season. My first slide is about Christmas. And yesterday, I called program manager Patti Lago of the McMaster Continuing Education, and I just called her on the phone and I said, Patti, nice to hear from you. I'm looking forward to the webinar tomorrow. And Patti said, me too. I'm in the LCBO. So I thought, well, like that could be a slide for how to harness humor during the hectic holiday season. It's not. I'm not. I am not a proponent of that, but it was a great start. And shortly after I spoke to my friend Patti, I found this cartoon that said, hey, it's Christmas somewhere. Yes, me too. Me too. That's excited since November 1st. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Roseanne. Okay. And thank you, Virginia. Thank you, everyone who is either out of the gate started and they're 50% or 40% like Dan, or many people like me who are at, 75, 80%. Here we go. Here we go. It is traditionally a time of the year where we have much to do. And I'm going to share with you that this webinar is going to be a little bit different. For many of you who know me, I am a pracademic. Someone called me that about 5 years ago, and it's stuck. I take evidence-based research and apply it using the tools and techniques of applied improvisation honed from my days at Second City, and I use the currency of comedy to teach listening, collaboration, connection, adaptability, all of that, However, for this one specifically, I need to just be a little bit vulnerable with you because I'm going to share my own experience around this particular topic. Honest to God, this is my 2010 holiday to-do list. And it's not even the whole thing, but this is what I tasked myself to do around this time of year. And let me know if you can identify with any of this. All of a sudden I will pick, late November, December to just, quick lose 10 pounds. And then I needed to paint the house and I wanted to buy new living room furniture. And I thought, learning to play the piano for some Christmas caroling when my children were still young would be a marvelous idea. And I wanted to make homemade stockings, and I had at least 75 people to give the cards to, and then I wanted to bake some more, and I had this Christmas cranberry chutney that I thought everyone would adore. And then the last thing on my list was buying a 13-foot Christmas tree and to decorate it perfectly. Needless to say, most of that did not happen. But like some of you in the chat, I have to tell you that I love the holidays. I love them. I have always loved them. As a little girl, I was always the one that was most excited, and the season always gives me hope and joy and stress. And I do a lot around Christmas time. I happen to have been married at Christmas time. Christmas, holiday season. I love it. The thing on this list that I did do was buy this tree. And I decorated it, and in spite of, and oh, thanks, Virginia. In spite of, and because of the fact that I put this stress on myself, one of the things that I do love is moments in the season where it is about connection and silence and beauty and reflection. And for me, as a humor researcher and a gelotologist, gelotology is the study of laughter. Why we do anthropologically, psychologically, why we do it, what it gives for us. It is that I now seek in the holidays, and not so much the to-do list, because this was the truth. This was me during the holidays. This was my husband. He was oh my God, I stress the poor boy out brutally, and along with my children. This too is a 2010 holiday bucket list that I thought would be delightful. It reads like some sort of ridiculous Hallmark movie where you just need to get through all of these things and then I will be fine. All of these things and then I will be, connected and in the holiday spirit. And live and learn. There is nothing like forced humility and finding the humor in unmet expectations, unrealistic time management, and what Abraham Lincoln called the thief of joy, comparison. Comparison. I suffered from that too. What are other people doing? What should I do? And I define myself not as who I was, but who I was not. And it cost me. So so through the process of finding the humor and learning to not take myself so damn seriously and laughing at myself and understanding what had built up those expectations and then going forward, managing them appropriately helped. This is what I was. This is, oh my God, this was my work on the final days. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap up. Let's end the year strong, right? I would give myself an umpteen number of things to do to wrap up in December before I could enter the holidays. As recovering holiday holics, what we need, if you identify, or if you know someone who has sort of suffered in a similar vein, what holiday holics need to do is to say yes to finding the humor, yes to embracing the imperfection and learning to love that, yes to a mess, yes to good enough, to better and different connection, to find the meaning that is meaningful to you, to me, to finding the laughter, and just yes and. And I know some of you, I think I recognize a few names here today. Yes and. What that phrase, some of you will know, is very important to me. It is the fundamental principle of improv. Yes and. Please share in the chat what you think this means. What is yes and in improv parlance? Good. Love that. Of course it is. Yes is an opportunity. Yes, and extending the idea. Allison, I love that. Thank you. The building on something in a positive way. Yeah, absolutely. Acceptance of a direction, listening and connection. Doreen, lovely to see your name. Better than yes, but. Absolutely. Yes is nothing more than an acceptance of what is. What is? Albert Einstein famously said, man should look at what is, not at what he wants there to be. And I tell you, the biggest form of miscommunication and speed bumps and unmet expectations and stress is when what we think will happen will not happen and our expectations are unmet. It is an on-ramp for a resentment, disappointment, and emotional heartache. But the acceptance of what is simply the yes. On an improv stage, if Doreen and Virginia and I are on stage together and Virginia says something like, Nancy, Doreen, come on, get in the canoe. I may not like the fact that I have to get into the canoe, but that is what has been built for me on stage, and that is what I accept. The and is where I add my own voice. Once the acceptance has been acknowledged, the and is where I get to add my voice and advance or heighten the scene. And Doreen and I can say, okay, here are the life jackets, and away we go in the scene. Yes, and. And it may not sound like a big deal. I promise you it's a big deal. acceptance of what is, and then having the emotional resiliency and the intellectual humility to add the and. Yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. When we talk about harnessing humor, we often, you might have heard this before as well, we don't look for what is funny, we look for what is true. We have often even heard, it's funny because it's true. There is deep relatability in things that are funny. My friend, and a guy that I am so lucky to work with, Colin Mockery, likes to say this quote, and I think it's funny because it's true. I think he might have been talking about some holiday dinners, but here is his quote: 9 out of 10 people believe that of 10 people, one person will always disagree with the other 9. We get it, right? We get it. And that, I have a life checker for you. I love that, Virginia. Don't look for what is funny, look for what is true. And by harnessing humor and looking at it in a different way, since humor is nothing more than perspective taking, it is looking at it from a different point of view. My pilot friends will say, change your angle of entry on that one. Change your altitude and your attitude to come at it differently, And that, my friends, is the source of all humor. That's how we build comedy. That is how we have our own perspective, but most importantly, the superpower is hearing the perspective of the other. Kelly Leonard from Second City in Chicago has a wonderful take on, improv. When we do applied improv on the main stage of Second City, we ask for your offers. We'll ask for an offer from the audience, and then we'll make a sketch, we'll make a scene seemingly out of nothing, despite there being a good theatrical framework to do so. A comedian, conversely, has a perspective all her own or his own. Jim Gaffigan is different than Mike Birbiglia, who is brilliant, by the way, who is different than Ellen DeGeneres, who is different than Dave Chappelle. They all have their perspective, and what we relate with them allows us to connect to them. Humor has a wonderful way of making the strange seem familiar and the familiar seem strange. I mean, it's even a little strange that many of us here today will have a tree inside a house, and the cats will be completely perplexed that, despite us hanging dangly things from it, they're not allowed to touch it. The strange seem familiar and the familiar seem strange. Humor has an interesting backstory to it as well. So in the chat, when I say humor, this is like a free association game. When I say humor, you think of what? What word do you think of? Funny bone, laughter, laugh, good, awesome, fun for sure. Chris Farley Scott, oh my God, a brilliant, love that you put him in there. Movie category, awesome, good one. Face hurt, silliness, Abigail. When your cheeks hurt, I love that. It does feel good. We are neurochemically, our neurobiology is wired for us. And John Candy. We have the Candy Box Theater now as an adjunct to Second City in Toronto, where we do sort of sketch in the works, and the conservatory groups are often working at the John Candy Box Theater. Relief, love that. Fiona, I want a whole other workshop with you, bullying. We're going to talk about the 3 different theories of humor and how they can help or hinder our stress management and how we can cope through the holidays, because there is some humor that is not great, not good for us, not good for the receiver. Love that you asked that, because when we asked the humorists themselves what they thought about when we said the word humor, the research showed something completely different. Oh my goodness, look at the words that came up. The humorists themselves, when they were building humor, they thought about incongruity, ambiguity, conflict, serious, risk. The word death is in there, for heaven's sake. You know, but for as long as humankind has been around, anthropologists tell us that we had laughter. It was our language before we had language. We laughed before we could speak. It has always been used as a connecting force and as a coping mechanism. As my friends, the nurses in the ER will say, right? We have this ability to mentally and emotionally cope with life's bigger issues by having that armor in humor. It can be used to connect. It can be used to disconnect for the good of our mental health, for the good of how we manage the hectic holiday season. Let's dig into how we can do that more. This guy, recognize this guy? Oh, he's so smart. He's so smart. He was instrumental in developing something called the Detroit Creativity Project, which does an amazing amount of good work in that city. Keegan Michael Key. Very often I hear that people say, I couldn't do improv. I'm not that funny. I can't think that fast. I don't really have a sense of humor, or I can't, it's not for me. When in actual fact, first of all, we all improvise every single day. Not one of us here today got up knowing exactly what we will say and what we will do. We navigate and shift and pivot all day long. What this man likes to say is that improv is not so much about driving forward as it is about taking steps back and observing and seeing our environment and looking around, understanding where we are and who we are and how we are doing. Our environment, by so doing, by backing up, we are able to perceive things clearly. We have perception, which allows us introspection, the inward reflection, and then even introspection, that awareness, that willingness to listen to our body, to our heart, our breathing, our stress, our clenched jaws, our fists, understanding our mind-body awareness. Backing up. The power of observation is huge. It is huge for humor. It is great for our mental wellness and our ability to find the humor in everything, humor in life. Because what humor does, what it does to the body is amazing. It lowers the stress hormones, it lowers the cortisol, it ups the endorphins and the dopamines, it releases the fears and the anger and the anxiety. Mark Twain said, humor is a great thing, the saving thing. The moment it crops up, our resentment and irritations go away. It is very difficult to feel bad when we're laughing. Humor gives us that. It boosts our immune system. It improves our mood and outlook on life. And even recent research has found that it lowers the pain threshold between the muscle spasm cycle in muscle disorders. Humor does that. It creates this connection with others. Victor Borge, this famous musician and comedian, said, "The shortest distance between two people is laughter." It releases the endorphins, the natural painkillers, and then it gives us that breathing, better oxygen. It increases our circulation to our heart and our brain and our lungs, and it's just everything you already know. Everything you already know. And it gives us, who said, the pain in the face, the pain when your cheeks hurt, we can actually even lose balance sometimes, like we lose our balance when something is so funny and so unexpected. It's just good for you. These are two cool researchers, Jennifer Ackar and Naomi Bagdonis from Stanford. They did a lot of research in humor and have a great book called Humor, Seriously. You can go on their website, humourseriously.com, and find your own style of humor. Find your own style of humor. They did a pretty big study, 1.4 million, and they asked the simple question, did you laugh yesterday? Did you laugh yesterday? And they compared that to age, and they found, despite humor being so good for us, such a powerful neurochemical, connecting human, community building thing, there's this massive cliff. We have the global humor cliff, is what they call it. This is taken directly from their research. And we see that by, age 24, 25, things, we're not laughing very much as adults, I guess the good news is that on 80, there's a good upswing, but this saddens me. It's not, why do you think that is? Why is there a massive, why do we start to decline at around 25? That's what their research shows. What is it around that age, that mid-20s, where we find humans stopping? Yeah, Fiona, we get serious. Life gets serious. Absolutely, Allison. Real life, work, busy, responsibilities, all of that. Real life. I love that comes in a couple times. Real life, real life, real life. We need it more than ever. And yet the seriousness, the weightiness of our lives takes precedence. There is some different, let me just go back there for a second, because I want you to try to remember the last time you had a belly laugh. Can you remember that? Sometimes where you actually had your face hurt and you lost your balance. Maybe the bladder was involved. There's some things, and even those that happened years ago, somehow when you remember it, it is still funny. It still gives us the endorphins or the lift, and we remember with whom we were laughing, and that deep connectedness. There are certain theories about humor. I mean, when we think about it, what makes something funny? Some people find it funny, some people don't. Why do we have this? And what are some of the sociological reasonings and theories for what this is? And the first one is the incongruity theory. And it's when the unexpected happens, right? It's when you expect one thing, but something else happens. And here's, try rolling on the ground, roll around on the ground. My sister loves this, and she gave it to me a couple of years ago, and it's from the New Yorker. We expect one thing, something else happens. When we anticipate what we know, which is the way we think, we are wired to think that way. We are great expectation machines. We anticipate what we want, and it is when we have that disconnect that we can be delighted and amused, and that's what we find funny. It's kind of like the joke, why can't Nancy tell a joke? Timing. Tell me if you got that, because when I was talking to my husband before the webinar today, he said, I don't think that's going to land. Honestly, he did. He said, the people won't get the timing. Why can't Nancy tell a joke? Timing. Okay, the superiority theory around humor from Plato and Aristotle, where we get to feel better than. We actually take pleasure out of others' mistakes or misfortune, and this can be funny temporarily, but if we drop anchor there, it is a bad place to land. You can't do that. It's not good for you. It's not good for them. And what it does is allow us to live in our negativity bias, which as humans, we have, and we have for good reason. You know, it perpetuated our species. We have a negativity bias to look for what is wrong or what could possibly go wrong versus what is good or what is right, because that is our Darwinian survival instinct. We are much more inclined, much more able to look for things that are negative. And so a couple maybe sort of negative type cartoons, but still kind of offering us a social commentary of the season. When is it time to want more? Yeah. Cans, bottles, newspapers, New Year's resolutions. Maybe not very positive, but a reflection on a good yes, an acceptance of often what is, you know? This is what I was speaking with a couple of people from a tech company, and they were talking about how much work they needed to do before the holidays. And their boss said something similar to this. He said, yeah, I'm flagging this for sure. Let's circle back after the holidays. And then this comparison. I'm exhausted. I had to get up 3 times to get packages that were delivered while you were out shopping. Yeah, I know. The same, the same. There is often a gender difference in the responsibilities of the season. And then the humor theory, this is proposed by Freud, and it is the relief. Someone else said this in the chat, thank you very much, that it gives us that. It is the pressure valve that is released and allows us to become more emotionally resilient and then pivot and carry on. It allows us to release the psychological tension and, you know, the suppressed thoughts that are socially acceptable. You know, it allows us that a little bit of relief. 2 dogs outside the door of a party. Look, let's have a drink from the toilet, sniff around a little, and then leave. My husband and I have had not that exact conversation, that type of conversation, right? Also relatable, right? One of the things that connects us is when the humor is part of me, part of my experience. That is what I can identify with. That is what makes it relatable. Okay, so we are right on time. A chat task. I would love it if you were to give me an example of something around the holidays that is particularly stressful, something that is especially challenging to you, or as my 14-year-old niece says, what weirds you out? What weirds you out around the holidays? My mother-in-law, me too. Wanting to do too much. Absolutely. The expectations. Travel, force visits with family, excess. Amen. This is all, I so identify with all of this. Secret Santas. God, really? That's funny. Surprising adult children. Absolutely. Oh, you're so good. I can see all of these. I can feel them. Yep, Elf on the Shelf. Okay, I have people, friends of mine, my children are grown men now, but the Elf on the Shelf came out after that there is a love-hate relationship with the Elf on the Shelf. I gave my good friend and mentor not an elf on the shelf, but a mensch on the bench, because he is endlessly. Absolutely, Gail. For somebody, it is a little bit offensive that right after Remembrance Day, we've got Christmas carols. The pressure seems to start earlier and earlier every year, right? Okay, too many people when trying to shop. Absolutely. I was at a mall not too long ago, and I had not been to a mall in a long time and couldn't believe how busy it was, you know? MAUL mall. It is definitely stressful. Okay, so we're going to take one of these and we're going to apply a comedy sketch writing task to it, an improv exercise to it. And I'm just going to, let's see, toilet humor, give me the funniest. I'm going to see. All right, I'm just going to take Elf on the Shelf because that's sort of what's calling to me. Okay, we are going to. This is an exercise where we do different perspective taking when we build sketch comedy and have different perspectives. It is an exercise that I play personally when something is emotionally challenging, and it is something that you can do and teach our children, and it is simply called Fortunately, Unfortunately. What it does is elevate something called mental or cognitive flexibility. Mental flexibility is that where we can take two seemingly disparate ideas and hold them in balance. Fortunately, we've got an elf on the shelf, unfortunately. So I either need, I need 2 volunteers, and you're going to play this. You're going to play this exercise. And it's a simple exercise. And if you're willing to, we can just have you. Fortunately, we've got elf on the shelf. And then unfortunately, the second person is going to say something that is unfortunate about that. And we're going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we will find this perspectives on this. Do we have 2 volunteers? Expectation. Oh, Allison, I love you. That is so great. Okay, Allison, we've got Allison volunteering. And so please unmute her, Will. You are great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's so great. And can we all just take a moment to appreciate that stress? And Abigail. Okay. Oh, shoot, Sandy. Oh, okay. Hang tight, Linda, because I'm going to have something else for you. Abigail and Allison are going to play this improv exercise where we do the fortunately, unfortunately. All right. Allison, you are going to say, fortunately, I have an elf on the shelf. Abigail, you are going to say, unfortunately, and you're going to go back and forth and get back and forth and back and forth until I call scene. And away you go.
Fortunately, I have an elf on the shelf.
Are you there, Abigail?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can. Thank you.
I said, unfortunately, she causes a lot of trouble.
Good.
Fortunately, my elf on the shelf keeps everyone well behaved.
Unfortunately, my dog does not like the elf on the shelf.
Good.
Fortunately, my elf on the shelf sometimes falls over.
Fortunately, she heals quite nicely. Oh, actually, unfortunately, she heals quite nicely is what I should say.
That's great.
Because I don't want her to heal.
Fortunately, my elf on the shelf may not be coming out this year.
Unfortunately, mine comes every year, or there are tears.
Fortunately, my kids are in their teens and early 20s now, so the elf on the shelf is just another decoration.
Oh, unfortunately, my child pretends to still believe in her, and I have to go along with it.
Fortunate for you. Enjoy that special time.
Unfortunately, I can mail mine to you.
Awesome. Great job. Great job. Applause in the chat. We often on Zoom, we have the sign language for applause. So it was a nice ending, wasn't it, Virginia? You even had resolution to that. Nicely done. Nicely done. One of the things that so in the chat, while that was fun and there was levity, what was hold for me the truth? Not what is funny, but what was true. What was true about that quick, fun scene that we heard from Allison and Abigail? And Abigail and Allison, feel free to share as well. What felt true? That was a pain in the ass. It totally is. Not everyone absolutely felt real and absolute. I could feel yep, you might as well miss. Amen to that it is part of the rituals, drawing from their own experience. Oh my goodness. Del Close, a famous improviser. He was brilliant. He used to say, don't make it up. Just remember, you have everything you need for comedy and humor and your own perspective and your own experience, right? That is so great. And we do get addicted to, attached to the rituals, for sure. For sure. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Fortunately, unfortunately, gives us that, whether we are at the mall or in a lineup, or, having a difficult conversation with someone around a holiday dinner. I can tell you that in my mind, when I play out this exercise, it calms me. I offer myself different perspectives, and it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't go dark. There is always a glass half full element to it. And please don't mistake a glass half full or positivity as that toxic positivity, that Pollyanna, turn that frown upside down. That is not what I'm talking about, It is when we put forth the effort. The difference between a glass half full and a glass half empty is whether, as my business mentor likes to remind me, whether I am pouring or drinking. Whether I'm pouring or drinking. And I love that. When I'm putting forth the effort, when I'm trying to find the connection with others and the humor in things, it'll always look good. But if I am in a conversation or a task, or I'm looking to just get, you'll never give me enough, It takes more cognitive and emotional effort to look at the good in life and the positive aspects of life, and immensely rewarding to do so. It is just worth it. So then how do we get there? How do we get to this place of happy Zen and the holidays? Well, the research will tell us that managing expectations is a huge deal. It was a huge deal for me, being so invested in the holidays since I was a little girl. I always had hope. And I'll tell you that sometimes those hopes were dashed, And there is a book by a famous author, Mo Binchy, and it is not heavy reading, it is light reading. She, along with Margaret Lawrence and Margaret Atwood, have some wonderful short stories around the holiday season. And her collection of short stories around Christmas time is called This Year It Will Be Different. This year it will be different. And understanding what I can control and what I can't, and the expectations that were, as I said earlier, like an on-ramp to a resentment and disappointment, needed to be caught early. For me, I needed to be able to understand that I was setting myself up for disappointment if I didn't manage my expectations and expectations both for others and for me. Someone said in the chat here that, we have we are expected to do a lot, or we want to, we will exhaust ourselves trying to do everything. And then that is just exhausting because it's time management. We have now a few weeks left to connect and do the things that we will do, and the travel and the arrangements and the family and all of that. And finding those realistic expectations inevitably means that we have the ability to manage our time as well. And interestingly, the research shows that when we are able to do this, we build our psychological resiliency. We are able to build by setting limits and saying no and offering different perspectives and not just learning, but unlearning. We build resiliency. And sometimes resiliency can come in 3 different forms. And the research shows that human resiliency, sometimes our resiliency is like a mighty oak, and our values are steadfast, and we know who we are, and we can't get knocked down. We can withstand things. We are resilient that way. Sometimes resiliency is more like the experience of a reed in the wind, where we get knocked down and we get back up, and we get knocked down and we get back up. And may we experience this, our teams experience this, our children experience this, because the research shows that building resiliency is nothing more than an emotional muscle that needs to be flexed. We need to be able to witness ourselves and to feel ourselves getting back up. And then thirdly, the research talks about, yes, it is, Kelly. Yes, it's Mobinchi. And then sometimes the resiliency is a form of adaptation. Have you ever seen one of those mother trees that look like, she has impossible growth, or the root structure is still growing in the most unlikely of places, and we adapt to our environment and build resiliency that way as well. So keeping comparison at bay, managing expectations, giving ourselves the gift of time management, all builds human resiliency. Absolutely, Danielle, for sure. Pixar, those clever people at Pixar. Ed Catmull has a wonderful business and life book called Creativity. And he talks about humor in a way that every framework of the films that come out of his company are meant to emotionally engage. They are meant to relate to us, and they are meant to balance heavy human themes. The book called Creativity by Ken Adams. I love that you know that. This is properly the reference. This is the Pixar story spine. Every Pixar story has these 7 elements to it. And I encourage you, I invite you to take your travel, mother-in-law, elf on the shelf, whatever, story spine, and build it out using this structure. And I'm happy to share this as well. Once upon a time, every day, one day, and because of that, until finally, and every day after that. It is part hero journey. It is part comedy sketch structure, and it is the story of our life. It is always the story for our life. I also implore you, I ask you to get a hold of gratitude for the season. It is the things that we are grateful for, big and small, are found often and only when we are observing. As Keegan-Michael Key says, when we're backing up, looking around, and we are saying yes to what is. Say yes and be grateful for the unexpected. And some other things that we have, I do not come from a particularly religious family. However, around the table on special occasions, my family will play the gratitude game, and we give thanks. We give thanks too, and some of these things. And I am grateful for warm clothes out of the dryer. When my boys were small, they said the warmth, it was what gave them superpowers. That was their thing. Pets playing with the wrapping tube around Christmas. My husband's an engineer. He said he was grateful for stainless steel. I am always grateful for coffee. I also like tea, and I am grateful for my friend Patti, who was at the LCBO. And when we first, oh, absolutely, look at this. The clean kitchen, sleep, yoga, a hot shower. You are awesome. How did you know? I didn't even ask you, and you are putting it in the chat. You are on to me. You are just, a cat in the lap. These small things, I tell you, the ROI of these things, the return on investment pays great dividends. May we give ourselves this. May we have a deep understanding of the meaning, your meaning, our meaning, and the intent of finding the humor as we handle the hectic holiday season. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you, thank you. Patti, I give it over to you. And again, my deep gratitude for all of the participation in the chat.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. As usual, you're just an amazing human, and you've just presented such insightful information that we can apply in our lives as we move forward in reference to the holiday season. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Nancy, for your wonderful presentation as usual, and to thank all the folks that have attended today, along with the support we've received from both Will and Dahlia. Very pleased. It was a great way to spend a 12 to 1 noon lunch hour today. On behalf of McMaster Continuing Education, we would like to extend holiday greetings to everybody. May you find your humor as you proceed towards the end of this year and approach a new year throughout the hectic holiday season. And we thank you again for joining us today.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Patti.